Joining us now is Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. Secretary Austin, thank you for being here. I want to start with those moves you announced late yesterday, last night. You've got the USS Eisenhower going to the Persian Gulf. You've got more missile defense systems headed to the region, troops put on standby. What's behind these moves?
Well, Jonathan, as you know, recently we've seen rocket and UAV attacks against bases housing our troops in Iraq and Syria. We're concerned about potential escalation. In fact, what we're seeing is the prospect of a significant escalation of attacks on our troops and our people throughout the region. And because of that, we're going to do what's necessary to make sure that our troops are in the right, good position. They're protected, and that we have the ability to respond. Now, this additional deployment sends another message to those who would seek to widen this conflict. As President Biden said earlier, and as you've heard me say, if any group or any country is looking to widen this conflict and take advantage of this very unfortunate situation that we see, our advice is don't. We maintain the right to defend ourselves, and we won't hesitate to take the appropriate action.
Well, in fact, we saw the USS Carney take down those 3 Houthi missiles. Houthis, again, that's an Iranian-backed group in Yemen, and also several drones. Was that takedown defending our ships in the region, or was it defending Israel?
Jonathan, when you have cruise missiles heading towards one of our DDGs, one of our destroyers, that vessel is going to do what it needs to do to protect itself. The same applies for the UAVs. And I applaud the work of the crew of the Carney. They demonstrated what our very capable United States Navy can do and will do if challenged.
And you've given them the authority to do that. That was done in an instant.
They have the inherent right for self-protection there, John. Yeah.
And could we see similar actions if we see Hezbollah or we see Iran start lobbing missiles towards Israel? I mean, are we effectively ready for air cover for the Israelis?
John, what we're focused on currently is making sure that we're providing the security assistance that Israel needs to defend itself. And that's been our focus from the very beginning. And I would tell you that I am in contact with Minister Gallant nearly every day. You know, I spoke to him on October 7th, the same day that the attack occurred. He identified to me what his needs were at that point in time, and we immediately started flowing security assistance to them.
And they're about to launch this ground offensive in Gaza. You were at CENTCOM. You were the CENTCOM commander when ISIS had control of Mosul, and it took 9 months, but you cleared ISIS out of Mosul with our Iraqi and Kurdish partners. What is that? What were the lessons you learned there that apply here?
Well, the first thing that everyone should know, and I think everybody does know, that urban combat is extremely difficult. It goes at a slow pace.
That was 9 months. Nine months of intense combat.
Yes. This may be a bit more difficult because of the underground network of tunnels that that Hamas has constructed over time, and the fact that they've had a long time to prepare for a fight. So I think you'll see a fight that's characterized by a lot of IEDs, a lot of booby traps, and just really grinding activity going forward. Now, one of the things that we learned is how to account for civilians in the battle space. And they are a part of the battle space, and we, in accordance with the law of war, we got to do what's necessary to protect those civilians. And as I've talked to Minister Gallant and others, I've encouraged them to conduct their operations in accordance with the law of war.
And I want to ask you on that front. We heard some pretty stark words from King Abdullah of Jordan, again, an American ally, no friend of Hamas, obviously, but very critical of what the Israelis have done so far. Let me bring up what he said. He said the relentless bombing campaign underway in Gaza as we speak is cruel and unconscionable on every level. It is collective punishment on a besieged and helpless people. It is a flagrant violation of international humanitarian law and a war crime. Is Israel doing enough to protect or to ensure that innocent civilians aren't getting killed in this?
We encourage them at every opportunity, John, to make sure that we are accounting for those civilians that are in the battle space, that we're providing corridors for them to leave the battle space if necessary, and that they're allowing humanitarian assistance to get into that space as well.
Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner, one of the Israeli military spokesmen, told ABC this week that if Hamas places a rocket in the courtyards of schools, we're going to strike that. What's your sense? These are obviously incredibly difficult decisions, but is a school a legitimate target if Hamas is using it effectively for cover? How would you handle that? You dealt with things like this in Mosul.
Certainly, you have to evaluate the target, the value of the target, who's at that location, and we always have we always get legal advice from our lawyers who are with us on the battlefield. But to your point, each target, John, needs to be carefully assessed, and we need to do everything we can to make sure that civilians are not injured or threatened. So the right thing to do is to make sure that we account for civilians in our planning, that we provide corridors for their movement out of the battle space, that we are not destroying protected properties and where possible. And I think the Israelis have been doing this for some time. Again, they are a professional force, and we will continue to encourage them to make sure that they're doing things in accordance with the law of war.
At the beginning of the ground invasion in Iraq in 2003, David Petraeus, of course, famously asked the question, "Tell me how this ends." So how does this end? Israel goes in, ground offensive in Gaza. What next?
Well, it has to transition to something else, John, and I think Hamas is a terrorist organization, and this is not the Palestinian people. Hamas, at the end of the day, Israel wants Hamas to be gone from Gaza. What does it transition to? Left to be defined, but I think that's an issue for the region and for the world to work together on. Hamas is not only just an organization; it's an ideology.
Yeah,
and so it's an idea. It's a bad idea. And the way you defeat a bad idea, John, is with a better idea. And I do think going forward, the community needs to work together to address the underlying causes of instability here. And until we do that, then I think we're going to continue to have challenges. But I think the Israelis understand that, they know that, and I think that's the direction that we all hope that we'll move in the future.
In other words, back towards an idea of a two-state solution.
As you know, John, that's been our position all along. A two-state solution is something that we think is very, very supportable.
All right, Secretary Austin, thank you very much for coming in this morning to talk to us.
Thanks, John.